So now they're saying that Melissa, this hurricane, like a couple hours ago, we heard that it was a Category 2 hurricane, right? And the Met Office, they were saying that this hurricane was moving at the speed of a walking person. And that in itself is very dangerous, because normally when it moves like that, what happens is that because the Caribbean waters are warm, it's like it's cooking. You know, when you cook oxtail and it takes so long, man, because it takes so long, it's nice. And then baby, the Melissa having Melissa is a cook up herself for the Caribbean. Like, she's taking her own sexy ass a sweet time. And a couple hours ago, we heard Melissa was a Category 2. Like, literally, maybe 4 to 5 hours, we heard that Melissa was a Category 2. Now we're hearing that Melissa is a Category 3. And then they're saying that by the time Melissa hits us, it's gonna be a Category 5. Jesus Christ, have mercy on us. I remember Gilbert, you know. I was a child, but I remember Gilbert. And when we got Gilbert, we thought Gilbert was a Category 5. It was last hurricane season that many of us heard, learned, and discovered that Gilbert was a Category 4 hurricane. And I can tell you the memories of Gilbert. It is so horrific. Horrific. We had this beautiful Victorian style built boardhouse. It was a boardhouse. It was on column. And there were only like a handful of those houses in our community. When you see a house like that in our community, you know that it's either that person travel far more, or that person have, you know, people are foreign. You know, my father had one that was our family home, and my parents' room, it was higher up on the column because the king and queen of the castle, and it was built in that, you know, Victorian style. Now, houses like those that still exist in Jamaica, they are considered heritage sites, and the government protect them, refurbishes them, and, you know, maintain them. But I remember Gilbert, my sister had a son, and my sister brought her son to us, which is her mother, because you know how Jamaica is. A girl leave home, she gets pregnant, she has her first child, she go carry her pitney back to her mother. Grandparents raise the first pitney. It's the tradition of Jamaica. So we had Kenny. Kenny was 3 months old, and it was me, my sisters. So it was me, my smallest sister after me, and my bigger sister that I followed, Kelly, the 3-month-old baby, my mom, and my dad. It was a big house because there was a boys' room. I remember there was a boys' room. That was the boys' lodge for my 3 brothers and my uncle. But, you know, I think my brothers were staying with some relatives at the time. And my uncle was a big man by that time, you know, gone out on his own. So it was just my father as the male, and it was, you know, 3 girls, us the 3 little girls, my mother, and my 3-month-old nephew. And may I tell you, say, you know, them old time radio with the battery, and my father kept listening to Roy Forrester, and my father could literally read the weather himself. Like, my father can look outside and tell you what is coming and what's not coming. You see, before the Met Office said the hurricane is approaching east, my dad told me that the hurricane is coming east, even before the Met Office said it. Like, when people want to know something about the weather, like, he's the go-to man. Where we live, he would go on the top of the road, look at the ocean, and he would look at the ocean waves. He would look at the sky and stuff, and he literally uses that to read the weather. So anything the Met Office is, because my father said it to me this morning, he said, if the hurricane continues on the same projected path, the island will be split in two. And he told me before the Met Office said it, he said that it's coming from the east. And normally, when the hurricane hits the east, it's the worst thing that can happen to us. But back to Gilbert, I remember we were in my mother's bedroom because it was this luxurious king-size bed that could hold everyone. So my dad said all of us huddled up in the room. But for some reason, my mother had everybody pack a little bag. And the little bag was in a corner, documents pack up and put away. But she was like, put 2 to 3 clothes, panty, your toothbrush in a little bag. And I remember 2 sheets of zinc blowing off the house top. And we were literally looking up in the sky. And we had to go under the bed. It was a big king-size bed, and we had to go under the bed. And them spring bed, we were holding on to the spring, and we were crying. And I remember at one point the house started jolting like that. That was the earthquake that we got in the middle of the storm. And we had no idea that we were getting the earthquake in the storm. And then we felt this swaying feeling. That was the bedroom coming off the column. It was concrete column, but the bedroom, my parents' bedroom, it was like facing the road higher up, and it came off the column and went flat, and we felt that swaying motion after the jolting feeling. That was the earthquake that came with the hurricane. And the neighbors were next door in their house, and they saw when our house came off the column. And my dad's friend Clement and another guy rushed over to our house, and Clement said, come, run up and come. And by we rushed into the neighbor's house, all the glasses started shattering. No matter what it battened down, everything started shattering. And that's how the glass was breaking in that house. Our house only had like glass in the middle, but it was how those houses used to build. And the glass in that house started shattering. And we had to run out of the house, and we had to head to the primary school now. So my mom had my nephew, the 3-month baby. He was wrapped in plastic because he was a baby. She had to ensure that he was secured, wrapped in plastic. And the journey to the school, it was normally about maybe 15-20 minutes depending on your walking speed. But because the wind force was so strong, it took us maybe 25 or 30 minutes to get to the school. And I never knew it was possible for rain drops to feel as though someone was whipping your ass repeatedly. That's what we felt. It felt as though someone was whipping, like someone had, the switch with the branches. It felt like someone was whipping our ass repeatedly while we were making our way to the school. And when we were making our way to the school, we had to keep on the road. We couldn't take any shortcuts because zinc was just flying. For us, the kids, we were told to keep our heads down. My father had a tarpaulin over us. it was a group of us, and we huddled together so that we could stay together and not get blown away because the wind. So, following up on the experience with Gilbert in 1998, September 12, 1998 to be exact. So, had 3 family, because when my father friend Clement and his other friend came to our house to take us out, Clement already had to leave his house to go to his other family house. So now we have 3 families in one house, and the aim now is for the 3 families to get to the school. So let me tell you something. You see, when you have good men, that's why it is important for good men to be in families. The men came together and they tied the tarpaulin together and they wrapped us around it because the wind forces were so strong. They weren't concerned about us getting wet. It was just a baby, Keddy, who was 3 months old at that time. And Keddy did chunky. And they wrapped us together and they said that we should hold on together. And like the instruction was, I am supposed to hold on to my little sister, Pam, and no matter what, don't let go. Pam was to hold on to me. I was to hold on to Karen, and no matter what, don't let. And that was the chain of command. We were in a circle, we were in a huddle, and we had on sneakers, and we had to keep our head down. The men were the ones who were outside without any protective covering, looking for missiles coming our direction, like if there was any tree limbs, if there was any zinc, if there was anything coming our way. But there were times when the tarpaulin would shift, and I remember the rain force was so strong that it felt as though someone was just taking a whip, beating your ass repeatedly. Like, it stings. The rain force, it stings, and it stings so badly. And when we got to the school, the people who were already at the school said, if these 3 families are at the school, you know that we really got a bad hurricane, because we're not the only 3 who had the best houses now, but like our houses were the houses that was looked at as we would be able to withstand this hurricane. But we lost, for our house, for my house, we lost just 4 sheets of zinc, and the house came off the column. We had some goats at the time. My father had the goats on the house bottom and set up a little thing for them. So when the house fall off column, let me tell you something, my father is one amazing man. He's one amazing man. When the house fall off the column, my father was worried about the goats, not because of the value of the goats, but he must say, animals have feeling and he can't leave them underneath there. And my father take a crowbar and break the flooring, rip up the flooring so that the goats could come up through the flooring and stay in the house. And when we were leaving the house, my father locked the goats inside, because at that point we didn't know if we were going to lose more zinc off the roof. But what he was saying, at least the goats would be safe inside until we get back to the house. And I remember in the night, the storm had died down a bit and the bed was properly wrapped. I remember the bed was properly wrapped, and my father and his friend, they went for our bed, and they brought one bed to the school, and it was my parents' bed. And because it was a king size bed now, my father, friend and his family, And us, my father said, him and his friend said, the woman and kids, you guys take the bed. So we had to lie down, long way. And the men, they cooked the night, and like the community came together and cook, they cooked, they get cow, then cook some big ass dumpling, like, but I could not eat because I was so traumatized. I was so traumatized from experiencing that storm that I could not eat. They gave me one dumpling, and the dumpling bigger than my head, because when men cook, the dumpling them huge. And I could not eat. I was trembling. My sister was trembling. We didn't understand what was going on. And in our heads, we were going to have to deal with that for the rest of the week. But that was not the case. We had rain in the night. The storm passed. And the following day, my father and his friends, they went back to the house. They realized that it was just 4 sheets of zinc missing. Besides a broken glass, my father replaced the missing zinc, and we went home. We had our living room that we could stay in. The boys' room were intact. The girls' room were intact, but my parents' bedroom, because it was on column, and the hardware was still closed. But by the weekend, everything for our house went back to normal. But the community, it was just total devastation. Total devastation. Like, the place looked different. Limbs, trees, things everywhere. But people came together and they worked together, and people helped each other and they rebuilt. But Gilbert in itself, we thought that Gilbert was a category 5, and it is last year that many of us had discovered, learned that it was only a category 4. So they're saying that Melissa may go up to a category 5 or even 6. And if I remember that trauma from Gilbert, that means if Melissa gets to Jamaica as a category 5, it's not going to be nice. And I would say to anyone, no matter how, like, in Jamaica, we build our houses sturdy, strong. But if you can leave your house and go to a shelter before the storm hits, package what you can package, cover what you can cover, protect what you can protect. If you live in a community where someone may go in and steal, not just lock your door, bar it off, nail it down, and just go to a shelter, because it is horrific when you're to leave your house in the heights of the storm seeking refuge. I was a young child, and I still remember the traumas of walking through that storm, having to get to that primary school. And I still remember the rain stinging as though someone was literally beating me consistently. And I could not cry. I was so scared, I could not even cry. So protect yourself, protect your loved one, and even if you think you have a decent house, please go to a shelter, please.